Hi, I'm Heather from booktubes, and today is Romancelandia and toxic feminism. I'm going to be talking about the battle cry that is romance is by women for women, the really weird lack of inclusion in Romancelandia, the fact that white women are kind of the top of the food chain in Romancelandia, and how often romance readers can take their identity as a romance reader as a sign that they are persecuted, a minority, and are using romance as their activism to be a romance reader, not for like other causes. And just kind of the weird things that I've observed in my time in the romance community. So I am actually going to have a live show talking about this with several different people. So if you wanted to hear about some of these topics from people who are not just white women but are all romance readers, that will be on Saturday, April 30th, 2 o'clock EST. And if you're watching this after, once I have the live show live, I will try and link it in the description. That does depend on my memory, so it's a slim chance, but I will try. So first of all, let's discuss that romance is by women for women, which is in fact false. Obviously, I am a white woman. If you are familiar with my channel, you know. According to YouTube, my audience is like 99% women, and most of the authors that I read are women. So I do get kind of some of the ignorance that can lead to that opinion, but it's simply not true. It's not inclusive. There are so many authors and readers who are male or trans or non-binary, who are not women, who are very good at what they do, who are huge romance readers, who have been in the community for forever, and this has never been a thing. Years ago, you had men writing under female pen names. So this has never been completely true. Also, happily ever afters, romance, getting to watch people like you fall in love should be for everybody. We should all get that. And so it's not cool when you're like, well, this romance reader group is only for women. I understand, okay? I am a content creator on the internet. When a man messages me, if all he says is hey, or if they even friend request me on Goodreads and we have no books, no genres even in common, I'm not accepting them. But if a man interacts with my content at all and is like, I love that book, I love this author, whatever, then yeah, you're welcome. You can be here. But like, I am not online to flirt, you know, like I'm not interested. So if people are engaging with me on my content, then yes, you are more than welcome. But I definitely do view random DMs and stuff from men's profile pictures and names as sus. So like, I understand all that, but at the same time, if a man or a non-binary person or a trans person is reading romance, like, that's so rude to be like, no, you can't be part of our group. This is only for women. That's an awful thing to do, in my opinion. I also really do get bothered by this because you have such popular books like the Bromance book club series where the entire premise is based on the idea that it's men, romance heroes even more specifically, reading romance books and how amazing that is. But then when a man reads romance publicly, some of his most violent critics will be women who read romance. They're like, that's not for you. How dare you critique a thing that we value or enjoy? How dare you think that you know better than us or can mansplain to us? And feminism shouldn't be anti-man. It should be anti-toxic masculinity and the patriarchy and misogyny, but it shouldn't be, no, you can't have nice things. I've seen this happen multiple times where usually white women, but not always, and definitely this can be prevalent in the queer community too, of Romancelandia specifically, attacking people who are also part of Romancelandia, but because they are a man or present male, you are just like, no, you're a misogynist, and you completely discount everything that they're saying when what they're saying is valid. It is like a known fact in the community. I have just seen some awful pile-ons with Romancelandia, white women being like, no, romance is the most important thing, and if I'm attacking you, a marginalized creator, I'm completely valid because defense of romance. That person is also a romance reader or a romance author. They're not attacking romance. They're pointing out a very real issue that is prevalent in the community. I still want to talk about how white men are not the pinnacle of desirability. Romance books have a real issue with the white man always being the romance hero, the love interest of the book. By far the biggest category of love interest in the entire genre. But there's this real issue with not seeing Black men as desirable, or Asian men as desirable, or even people who don't fall into the conventionally attractive body type. So short or fat, or even like not having a huge dick. Like romance is very behind when it comes to their male heroes, because we want this perfectly sculpted god with the 12-pack to love this curvy heroine, this short heroine, this clumsy, frumpy, I don't know what I'm talking about, main character. But we don't want any diversity in the love interest at all whatsoever. You have to be over 6 feet. You have to have a huge dick. You have to have at least a 6-pack. Blue eyes, brown eyes, not acceptable. Black hair, preferably a very strong, charismatic will, and if you have no personality, that's totally fine. You just need to be a little bit of an a-hole, obsessed with the main character. That's all we need from you. Copy and paste, insert here. And that is odd to me. Now, I have nothing wrong with you writing your type as your romance hero, right? But just we want all of this diversity, inclusivity with the female main characters, and we want none when it comes to our love interests. And I think that's kind of an awful thing. And it can be very racist and white supremacist, because it's just like only type of man who is inspiring or worth retaining is a over 6 foot white man, and that's like, I wouldn't like that. If I was reading a genre where the only female love interest had to be a sex pot and the very conventionally attractive, this image brings up sex to my mind, way, I wouldn't enjoy that genre for long, and I wouldn't enjoy reading that type over and over and over again, as this is the only thing we find attractive. I find it bothersome. I truly do. I think part of it is that's not my type. So it's easy for me to just feel like, not another one. But also, it's a really big problem. Now, are there authors who write Black men, short men, Asian love interests, sapphic, queer, trans, non-binary, disabled? Yes, there are, and they're usually indie authors, right? So these books do exist, and I love them. So I'm not in any way saying that they don't exist. They very much do. What I'm saying is the overall community has a prevalent problem of this being what we view as the perfect boyfriend. Next, I kind of wanted to talk about reverse harem. I will have an entire video about this in May, and obviously this does fall into Orientalist racism and things that were made up about the Orient by white men who weren't allowed to see what the truth actually was, and then they brought home their stories, and that became the prevalent media depiction. So I will have a whole video about this, but kind of for the purpose of this video, skipping over the Orientalist origins of harem, just kind of the fact that why do we like it? I'm just curious if you have thoughts about this. Why do we have an entire subgenre where it's one woman with multiple men? And I am using gender specific language because this is definitely the most prevalent thing. But we absolutely do not have where the main character is just one love interest of many. it's just kind of weird to me, and I think it does kind of play into the by woman for women. Well, this is for us, so what do we care if men wouldn't be into it? And of course we don't have 6 different women with 1 man because we wouldn't like that, but it's just interesting to me. It's just interesting to me how I feel like there would be a lot of criticism for the opposite subgenre, you know? And I'm saying this again as someone who likes reading it. I have many favorites, but it's just an interesting thing to me, an interesting double standard, if you will. Then you have gay men who are fetishized, and I don't know if I said that word right because I can't say it to save my life. And also male authors, non-binary, trans authors are pushed out of writing male-male romance. They are not the target audience. They are not the most bought authors. They are often told that they are the problem. They are told that they shouldn't have any criticism for it because it's escapism and it helps people to process their own trauma in a way that is not them being the victim. But gay men exist. They're not like a magical unicorn that you can just project all of your issues on and work on it through fiction. They're real. I don't know if you know this or not, but they're real people, and they're real people who are seeing the things that you're saying, that seeing gay men in books be victims of sexual assault and domestic violence and rape and grooming and all of the things that they are often victims of themselves. You're saying it doesn't bother you as much because it's them and not you, and that's just an awful thing to say, and it is something I have seen so much of. We're not talking about one outlier, one weirdo who's just like, I like seeing men get hurt. It is a huge part of the demographic of the readers of those books and the authors of those books, and it is a problem. If the people who are in those books, who are supposed to be represented in those books, tell you over and over and over and over again, this is harmful, this is a problem, this is not realistic, it is not right, it is not something you should be doing, you can't just ignore what they're saying because you're a fan, because you like it. You're hurting real people, and that's never okay for your fiction. I say this again as someone who loves taboo and dark romances, who likes so many things that I would never excuse in my sister's relationship or my daughter's relationship or my relationship. But I am also not actively reading things that portray harmful stereotypes and continue the oppression of real life people. And it's really something that is a huge problem. Whenever a gay man talks about it, they often get piled on, and it's really just an unfortunate and disgusting phenomenon. I think the biggest part that really bothers me is that they just don't have any shame about it. It's like, no, I'm right, I can attack you in real life because I like these books, and it's just weird. It's weird, and it should be fixed. Now we're going to get into the romance tropes and the language that is very heteronormative. It's very much the hero and the heroine. It is the male and the female, the man and the woman. Our hero has all these masculine stereotype characteristics, and our heroine has all of these feminine. The language, even the tropes, the language around it is very much playing into traditional gender roles and honestly toxic masculinity and the patriarchy and all the things. Now, I am a stay-at-home mom. I am a wife. I love my very manly husband. So there's nothing wrong with that being your personal preference or the way that your real life relationship plays out. Literally nothing wrong with it, right? But it is one of those things where that's great if that is your choice, the thing that you want for your life, but it shouldn't be the only option available to people. I think that's where we get into issues. And again, since romance should be and is for everyone, then we should try to be more inclusive in our language of everyone. Also been really obvious to me because I've been explaining romance catchphrases and shorthand and language and tropes, and it is just interesting how the entire genre really does kind of play into, well, we're going to have our hero and our heroine, and they're going to fall into these expected archetypes. So as much as you can, try to combat that, try to be more inclusive. And I guess just try and decide who you want to be a safe space for and be aware of the things that you're saying. Okay, this is something that drives me nuts. I am so bothered by this because you will have romance readers who will advocate for, I should get to read incest in books. I should get to read the stepbrother romance. I should get to read this 30-year age gap. And listen, okay. Like I said, I like so many taboo and problematic and dark content themes and things in my relationships in my books. So I do think that you should be able to read that. Do I think that you should necessarily be dying on the hill of having these twins as love interests is fine? No, like I'm not gonna die on that hill because I'm not comfy with it. But you will have them go so hard for their right to read dark romance or taboo romance or romance in general, and then they will be complete crickets when people who are part of our community, who are romance readers and romance authors, are like, okay, but this is racist, but this is transphobic, but this is perpetuating harm on people. This is a slur. Can we not use it? You will have complete crickets for that. You won't have them advocating for the people in their community who are marginalized in one way or another. You won't have them advocating for that, but they will literally rip into anyone, including the marginalized identities who have real life issues. They will rip into them over their right to read this problematic romance. And I just have a huge problem with that. I do think that you have the right to read whatever you want, whether it personally crosses my line or not. More power to you, read what you want, but don't be a real life bully and awful person to defend your right to read it. And also maybe consider going as hard for the real life people who you follow or who follow you or who are part of your community, who have all these things in common with you, and you don't care about their issues. You only care about your rights as a romance reader. It's weird. It's a problem. And it also is very exclusionary because it's like, then so many people aren't comfortable around you because you're not a safe space. You are very focused on yourself and your marginalized identity as a romance reader and all of the problems you have to face as a romance reader. And it's not a persecution. Someone saying they don't like the book that you read isn't the same as racism. It's not, and too many of you think that it is. On the back of this, I will add that Romancelandia has truly become, and perhaps has always been, a rabid fan base, a fandom that will mob anyone who criticizes their favorites, regardless of the fact that you are piling onto an underage creator or a marginalized creator or someone who is right. They're not just making stuff up. It's not even up to interpretation, because there are some things where I'm like, listen, I've heard very opposing opinions and I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. You seem to be very convinced that you're right, but there are other people who share your identity who really just don't think so. So there are some things where I'm like, I don't know. But there are so many things where it's like, no, it's very black and white. This is a problem. This is racist. This is homophobic. This is predatory towards underage minors. Okay, I guess what it is I'm not okay with white women mobbing marginalized creators. I'm not okay with adults on the internet attacking underage minors who posted an opinion that was right or wasn't harmful or was just their opinion. These things bother me, and when I see romance readers do it so prevalently and sometimes so violently or viciously, just crossing so many lines, but it's okay because it's in defense of romance, that really bothers me. And it really bothers me that you think it's okay to attack a Black woman or a gay man or, again, a 14-year-old because they dared to say, hey, that in that book, that's not good, or this author is supporting things that I can't support. I'm not okay with it. And it's like a big thing. It's a thing. And I think that romance readers need to check each other a whole lot more than they're doing, because it's no. No, don't do that. I think that I want to end this with romance is looked down on because of misogyny and because of the patriarchy, and because things that are traditionally enjoyed by women or teen girls or are seen as feminine hobbies or pursuits are looked down upon. All of that is true. But also, white women specifically are not the only victims of misogyny. Young boys are, gay men are, trans men are, non-binary people are. Even your straight, white, cis het male with all of his privilege can still be a victim of toxic masculinity, of the patriarchy, of misogyny, of all of the things that we should be trying to fight against. And instead, we often do uphold them. Romance is often seen as inherently feminist, but there's more to feminism than getting an orgasm. There just simply is. And so when we ignore that and we're like, no, all of these problems are fine because feminism, and you're just misogynistic, or you're just jealous of women being happy. Those things can be true and they can be false. You can't attack valid criticisms because, well, you're just a misogynist. No, they're not. They're every bit, and probably more so, a victim of misogyny than you are, because you're white or you're cis or you have all these privileges that they don't have, but you don't view it that way. I just wish that we didn't take these things that are true, that romance is looked down on because of misogyny, and then cause more harm upholding those very things that we're supposedly fighting against. Let me know your thoughts. I'm looking forward to the live show and hearing other people's thoughts. I don't know how well I made this video, but these are things that I've observed, that I've heard other people talk about, that I've had presented to me by Black women and by queer authors and readers. These different people who I really respect, and I follow them and I pay attention to what they say, and so many of them have talked about how harmful the romance community can be to marginalized creators. And I would love to know your thoughts about any of these points. Correct me if I'm wrong on anything. And I hope you watched the live show, and I hope I learned stuff in the live show. So thanks so much for watching. Bye.